Hi there, I wanted to pop in and talk to you today about one of my favourite tools for getting rid of anxiety, and that is breathwork. So you might have heard a little bit about breathwork before, and there's all sorts of modalities. One of my favourite ones is of course the Wim Hof method, which I've talked about before. But for anyone out there who's tried it and with not so much guidance, you might feel like it's a little bit challenging. There's a lot of different components that come into it. So what I wanted to do today was just introduce you to a technique that's a lot simpler, that you can start using right away, and it's so powerful that in fact the Navy SEALs even use it. So hopefully that's enough to convince you that it's a good idea. But before we dive in and start doing a little bit of practice, I just wanted to tell you a little bit about why breathwork is so important for handling anxiety, for bringing down the volume on your anxiety. It's not necessarily a cure, but it's definitely something that can, like I say, turn down the volume, a bit like a remote control for our nervous system. So just to get a little bit the concept of what's going on. So there's a couple of states within our nervous system that are really important to be aware of. So one of them is a parasympathetic nervous system state, which is our rest and digest mode. It tends to be what happens when we go to sleep and our body does all that overnight repairing. And then there's the sympathetic nervous system, or the stress state. So that's when we're sort of ready for action. We're ready to fight. We're ready to run away. Or some of us freeze as well. So it should be that we actually spend a large part of our day as well as our night in this parasympathetic nervous system state. But unfortunately, that's not the case. With all of the stresses of life, and especially what's happening in the world at the moment, it's very difficult to remain within your center and to stay there for the big part of the day. Also, a little bit of stress can be helpful for us in achieving certain things, but most of us just have too much. That's the reality of it. So breathwork is really, really powerful for just down-regulating that stress response and helping to get us back over into this parasympathetic nervous system state. So we're not always in that sympathetic stress state. And if you're wondering, a good little trick to remember how to know which one's which, you've got P stands for peace and parasympathetic, and S stands for stress and sympathetic. So that's how I always remember which one's which. Nice little trick for you there. So just before we get started, what I'd love for you to do is just check in with yourself. And to do that, the best way is to sense where your breath is inside your body. So it can sometimes really help to do that physically. So to put one hand on your chest and one hand on your stomach and really feel where the breath is coming into your body. So for many of us, the breath is staying up very, very high, or what we call shallow breathing. So just check in for yourself, take a moment. You can close your eyes if you like, if that feels more comfortable. Just to connect, tune in, see where your breath is. I'm a little bit excited at the moment, so my breath's up a little bit higher than it should be. But generally we should try and keep our breath low in our stomach. In fact, that bottom hand should be pushing out with each breath that we take. So just checking in, and if you notice that your breath is a little high, then I'd love for you to stick around and do this exercise with me. So this exercise I'm about to show you is called box breathing. And yes, the Navy SEALs use it. It's very powerful. You can imagine the Navy SEALs are in these pretty high pressure, high stress situations where they need to be extremely focused, and they can't get into these anxious states, because if they do, people die. So they need to have a way to really hijack that nervous system and take control of it and keep it in that strong sort of focused state so they can get the job done. So we're going to borrow that technique from them today. So it's called box breathing because there's sort of 4 sides. So I like to visualize it actually as a box. So if you can imagine that you breathe in for 4 counts, you hold for 4 counts, you breathe out for 4 counts, and hold again for 4 counts, and you keep going around. When I say 4 counts, I mean 4 seconds, around about. But the idea is that you have that hold at the top and the hold on the bottom. So I'll just do a couple of rounds for you just so you get the idea. I'll keep one hand on my stomach so you can see that moving a little bit. And I'll just use my hand to gesture where I'm at, because if I'm breathing, I can't speak at the same time. So just bringing a little bit of focus, a little bit of calm. And here we go. So breathing in. There we go. So a few rounds for you. So it's really calming. I already feel that sense of relaxation coming back into my body. So one thing I didn't mention before as well, the best way to do it is, if you haven't got a cold, is to breathe in through your nose. So the nose allows us to warm up the air before it goes into the lungs, and it's also a good way for collecting any sort of pathogens that are in the air before they sort of get into the body. So that's what our nose is designed for. If it feels better for you, you can breathe out through the mouth. I did a little bit. Sometimes it just feels good just to let it go a little bit more out of the mouth. Otherwise, you can just do in and out through the nostrils. But I certainly recommend you do your inhalation through the nostrils. It's much more calming for you. There's a whole lot of science behind that I'm not going to go into today. I just love you to feel it for yourself. So let's get started. So find yourself a nice comfortable place. Maybe you like to put one hand on your chest and one hand on your stomach, or maybe you like to have both hands on your stomach. So just settle in, feel where you're at, and I'll do the same hand gestures so you know where we are, and I'll talk you through it. So when you're ready, let's go. So inhaling, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Last one, inhaling, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Perfect. Well done. So just sense how you're feeling in your body now, and compare that to when we checked in at first. Has your breath changed where it is? Did you focus on really bringing that inhale down into your stomach and pushing out on your hands? If not, it's just something to bring in next time. But really just feel those sensations in your body. If there's a little bit more calm there. And the beauty of this technique is it's so simple. And if you're finding you're not getting the results that you want after just doing a few rounds like that, then keep going. Just every now and then just break. So you maybe do 4 or 5 rounds and then just check, go, how am I feeling? It's very, very infrequent that we stop and ask ourselves, how am I actually feeling? So this is a good exercise to get in tune with that and really sense that. So I want you to take that on board. So hopefully that gives you enough to go home and try that for yourself and use this technique in the times where you're really anxious. But I want to give you one more as a little bonus, a super quick one, and I like to call it the power sigh. So it can feel a bit ridiculous, but if you're by yourself, it doesn't matter, and if you're with people, it also doesn't matter, but sometimes we can make a bit of fun out of it. But I call it the power sigh because our sigh is very powerful. It's a release, it's an exhalation, letting go of any sort of stress. So all you need to do is take one big, deep in-breath through your nose, ideally, if you must, through your mouth, but I like the nose better. So filling up your belly and your chest, trying not to breathe too much with your shoulders, really bringing it up through expanding your diaphragm out rather than up. Then letting it all go. This is why it feels a bit silly making these noises, but it really does help release the stress from your system. So doing it again. So just bringing that breath all the way into your belly first, then filling up your chest, holding just a little, building that pressure, and then just releasing that sigh out. So in through the belly. Instant release. So that's a fun one as well. And it's something you could do with your kids. If you have kids at home, they'll probably make a big game out of it. But it's a really good way to just quickly release that stress from your system. So hopefully those ones have been really useful for you as well. And one tip I always teach to my clients who work in an office context or somewhere where they're around a lot of people, if they're wanting to just sense a little bit where they are without making it really obvious, like I'm doing some sort of strange breath thing, then a nice one is just to pretend that you're stretching your back. because our diaphragm actually doesn't just come down at the bottom and through the front. It's actually something that balloons out on all sides. So we should feel it at the back. So when you're breathing in, you should be pushing actually into your hands. So you want to position your hands sort of just on the back and just beneath your rib cage. And you want to feel as you're breathing in that you're pushing out into those hands. And if you're not getting any feeling of pushing out in your hands, then you're not breathing deep enough. So you want to really bring that breath deeper to keep yourself in that parasympathetic or peaceful nervous system state where your body can really regenerate and rest and repair, do all of those essential processes that it needs to do to keep your immune system in great shape. So it's so nice when you can just do it. You just pretend that you're stretching your back. Chair's a bit uncomfortable, but just breathing in, just concentrating as you do. Really pushing that out breath into the back of your hands there. So that's a really nice one as well. That's pretty subtle. Right? You only need to do a couple of breaths and it already distracts your mind from all of those monkey thoughts that are going around. So I hope that's been a nice little simple introduction to some breathwork techniques for you. I'd love to hear what you think. So thank you for taking the time to spend with me and to go through this. If you want, you can rewind again and go through the box breathing exercise, but it's one I really highly recommend to practice, not just when you're feeling anxious, but also when you're feeling good. Make it a tool that's really, really easy to go to, that's familiar for you, that you can incorporate really, really easy into your life when you need it as well as when you don't. So thanks again, hope it's useful. Drop your comments below, I'd love to hear what you think. Okay, and wishing you a great day.